Live, the best coverage of the top stories in sports. The Sports Wrap with Jason Page starts now.
Yes, it does on a Thursday, and thank you, Chad Erickson. Lots to do over the next 60 minutes of this broadcast. Dennis Bernstein drops by for his first visit in season for the NHL. Only took us 4 weeks. Get into it with him on the top issues around the league. Big night in the NBA. Big night in just basketball in general. We'll get into some of that coming up in about 10 minutes on the program. The Mike Tyson, Jake Paul fight is like a week away, and they got issues. We'll get into that as well, plus a Thursday night NFL betting preview. But we start things out in the NFL, and there is Sam Yarnell. NFL, Sam Yarnell. It rhymes. See? It's perfect. Sam, a lot of injuries around the league. Making headlines as we get ready to start week 10 in the league with the Bengals and the Ravens. Start with the Dak Prescott injury, which is obviously a big one. Now we find out that it's not just a hamstring injury, but that it's a hamstring injury where it's part of the hamstring tore off the bone. Yeah. Not a very pleasant situation in Dallas for the Cowboys, who you almost wonder at this point, is it just a lost season where you start thinking about how you're going to retool this franchise, get a new head coach? We talked about that on the show with Matt Verderam yesterday. Almost assuredly, you're not going to have Mike McCarthy there as the head coach. If you're the Cowboys right now, is it just sort of, toss away the season?
Yeah, so interestingly enough, Jason, with regard to the Dak Prescott injury, there's a I don't want to say a significant amount of misinformation, but just because of the discrepancy between the medical world and the sports world, there's a little bit of misunderstanding going on in all of this reporting. Everyone keeps reporting that this is a hamstring issue, making people think it is a muscular issue. I was talking to a medical professional last night when the news broke, ironically, just about something completely different. And they explained to me that this is not a muscular issue. This is an issue with the bone of Dak Prescott and how it connects to his hamstring. This could be much larger than a regular hamstring tear, which already is a massive injury when you're talking about the sport of football, and one that the NFL, obviously, aside from concussions, may most drastically underdiagnose or undertreat just because of its nature. This is going to be a very slippery slope, and obviously with the Cowboys now, listen, is it a lost season yet? I want to say yes, but like if Cooper Rush comes in and goes 3-0 or 4-0 in the next 4 weeks, yeah, miney they'll creep back in if Philadelphia goes full Sirianni and loses a few big games. I don't want to say it's the absolute end. The Mingo trade at the deadline, again, made no sense to me. It's just a perplexing franchise.
Yeah.
I don't want to say that the season's over, but if it makes sense, Jason, I'm closer to saying that the franchise is over than the season is over.
Well, I mean, it is what it is as far as the franchise is concerned. Again, as we discussed yesterday on the show with Matt Verderam, as long as Jerry Jones is the owner and refuses to relinquish control of the GM position, they're 3-5. If the NFL draft were today, they'd have the 10th overall pick. The reality is, though, and there's all sorts of tiebreakers that get mixed into this, they're one game. They're just one win better than the worst team in the league. I don't even know where you'd go if you got the top pick, considering you just signed Dak Prescott to a $1 zillion contract. But certainly something the Cowboys have to think about if it continues to go the wrong way. Real quick, because I got more to get to.
If they have a shot at Travis Hunter, that's the only kid in the draft who you could see drastically changing this franchise. He lines up across from Steedy, and then again in that secondary, that's the only real answer to me.
Christian McCaffrey looks like he is poised to make his return this weekend, potentially to save the 49ers season, which was on the brink at one point, but now is starting to look a little bit better. Jordan Mason is dealing with an injury. The Niners have been hit by the injury bug this year. What do we think of Christian McCaffrey returning this weekend?
Jordan Mason's been dealing with an injury, sure, but Isaac Guerrero, who has been just fine in his absence. Listen, I'm so tired of the Christian McCaffrey narrative, and I know your fantasy team is too. whatever. If he's going to chase a ring this year and then call it quits, great. This is not a guy who is going to last much longer in the NFL. And quite frankly, we have to wonder if he's a real difference maker after having such a drastic injury. I know he's great at his position, but is he still the difference maker he once was? If he's
we'll find out. I mean, let's find out.
Why,
but let's find out. That's my point. At least we'll get a clue.
Stir up the narrative before anything happens, Jason. That's our job.
No, see, I would rather wait and be right than jump out and be first and be wrong. Brian Robinson, look, you got a Commanders team that's 7-2, and we'll talk about them a little later on in Contender Pretender. Hint, hint. But Brian Robinson dealing with an injury right now too.
Again, not a huge deal to me. Listen, Austin Eckler has looked really good in limited playing time this year, and the kid Zacchaeus, who they got, has become a weapon for them out of nowhere. So I know it's a big injury for them, but I really am not concerned. They've shown me that they have a lot of depth. Real quick on the Niners, the only thing that they're going to have to rely on if they want to have success is the Call of Duty thing happening with Kyler Murray, because the Cardinals look hot right now.
Amari Cooper dealing with a wrist injury, one of the new toys for Josh Allen to play with. What is this? I swear I'm making a GIF out of you. I am making a GIF out of you. I swear. I'm going to do it. Go ahead. Come on.
Yes.
Of you Amari just Cooper doing this.
Has this wrist injury. I wonder if this wrist injury doesn't linger for a few more weeks, at least through the Indianapolis week until the Kansas City week, just to try and get a veteran some rest in a season where they've basically already clinched the division.
Very interesting. Jacksonville's dealing with an injury to Trevor Lawrence. Could we see Mac Jones this weekend at home for the Jags?
I was talking to someone in the sports media world yesterday about this, and they said, wouldn't it be funny, man, to see Mac Jones start for Trevor Lawrence when, 6 years ago we were talking about how these two guys were going to be next up for their franchises, and now they're starting for a team that, if the season ended today, would have the second pick in the NFL draft?
Yeah. And Trevor Lawrence now back-to-back years dealing with injuries. It's his non-throwing shoulder, which leads me to believe he's going to play. But
when are we going to call this guy a bust? Because he was the golden boy, he was the QB1, and he hasn't made an AFC Championship game.
It's a good question. I don't know when we officially cross the line of bust. Yeah, but he's never won an MVP. Embiid's won an MVP.
That's true. Good point.
Yeah, I'm full of them. Speaking of basketball, we'll do it next. All right, let's take it to segment 2. Let's talk some basketball on SportsWrap coming up in 10 minutes. Contender Pretender, Week 10 edition in the NFL. Fun night in basketball last night. Wednesday nights are going to kind of be that night for a little while. When you don't have any baseball now, you don't have any NFL. So I cozied up on the new couch in the studio last night. We got a new couch in the studio. It is not the casting couch, despite what anybody wants to believe. And why do I get that look? Why do I get that weird look? It's not a casting couch. No reason. I'm just saying it's not a casting couch. It almost looks like a couch that belongs in a therapist's office. I should take a picture of it. Anyhow, I sat down and watched some basketball last night. It was the first time I really fully engrossed myself in hoops. So we did that last night, starting with the Celtics getting a visit from the Warriors. And this was sort of an early barometer game for this Warriors team. And I got to say, for somebody who's generally not a fan of the Warriors, for a variety of reasons over the years, this is a fun Warriors team to watch. They play a ton of guys. They play so hard on the defensive end, which is such a switch from where this team was just a couple of years ago. A lot of youth infused into it, and man, can Buddy Hield shoot the basketball. My God, he could catch it, and he gets it up so fast. I know the Celtics didn't have Porzingis. I know they didn't have Jaylen Brown. Draymond Green played well. I'm telling you, I was blown away with what I saw out of the Warriors. By the way, including those friggin' hot alternate road jerseys, which I love. I got to get me one of those.
Yeah, those are some of the better jerseys in the circuit right now. Listen, they're 7-1.
They are.
I like you, known anti-Warriors guy on the program. You're not gonna win a significant amount of basketball games or meaningful postseason basketball games playing 11 guys 13 minutes at the minimum. It's just, we've seen it not work out in the NBA before. Maybe when you've got Steph Curry and Draymond Green and multiple Hall of Famers in that rotation, yeah, you probably will win a few games here and there, and you'll go on a 7-1 8-game stretch. The fact of the matter is, I feel like this game, Jason, to me, spoke a little bit more to the Celtics. And as much as through the first 8 games of the regular season for the Celtics, we didn't see a championship hangover. I think this was the game where it started to come out. They couldn't make defensive adjustments when they needed to, which is something that we've always prided Joe Mazzulla on. It was like the Warriors were reaching into both an old and new bag of tricks, and the Celtics couldn't adapt in any way, shape, or form. So to me, it was kind of just more of a Celtics showing a little bit of a championship hangover. Listen, the way the Warriors are winning is fun to watch. I agree with you, but I just don't think it's sustainable in today's NBA.
You know what I like on the Celtics? This kid, Neemias Queta. Wow. 14 points, 8 rebounds, 2 blocks. He's fun. He's fun to watch, and I think the more playing time he gets, the more they're going to get out of him. I think he's going to get better as the season goes along. Remember, no Brown, no Porzingis. Tatum played well. He had 32, and he got off to a slow start in that game. Derek White was the opposite. I think he had 12 in like the first 3 or 4 minutes, only finished with 26, hit his first 3 or 4 threes, and then all of a sudden he was 7 of 16 at the end of the night from beyond the arc. He got a little 3-point happy. You know what? Kudos to the Warriors. They're 7-1. I don't think anybody expected this from them out of the gate. Let's see what it looks like in another month or two. Zachary Rieseshay. Wow. 33 against the Knicks, who are still trying to find their footing, it feels like, with this, addition of Karl Anthony Towns. I'm not panicking coming out of the gate. I think the Knicks are like 4-4, something like that. Good win for Atlanta, though. And certainly a bright spot to see Rieseshay throw up a career-high performance.
They're 3-4, but their 3 wins have come against the Pacers, Heat, and Pistons. I do listen. It was a great game, and you're showing why the kid was the number 1 overall pick. Maybe I think Alex Sarr was probably the real number 1 overall pick, but then he said that whole thing about how he didn't want to go to Atlanta. I don't trust Trae Young. I don't think either. 3 games this season stick out to me for Trae Young just not being all the way there. If Rieseshay can pick up what Trae Young's lacking, this team becomes a little competitive. Right now, they got to start building for the future. It looks like they may have hit on this draft pick.
Yeah, it certainly looks like it. Thunder lost their first game of the season on Wednesday night in Denver against the Nuggets. The Nuggets will certainly be heard from in that Western Conference, Sam, no question about that. Great game, though. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander had a shot late to try and tie the game. Couldn't do so. Good win for the Nuggets.
I mean, Nikola Jokic almost went 20-20-20 in this game. He had 23 points, 20 rebounds, and 16 assists.
Insane.
The dude is insane. It's wild. He's back for yet another MVP, and right when you started to worry about the Nuggets, here comes their superhero.
It's too early to worry about any of these good teams. It just is. I know the NBA preseason, They play a little bit more than they do in other sports, but, a lot of these guys are just getting themselves back into game shape. So I don't go too crazy about what we see. Unless you're a Sixers fan and you still have 1 win after another loss last night in LA against the Clippers, who are still playing without Kawhi Leonard. Real quick, performance of the night in basketball has to be the kid from Creighton, Ryan Kalkbrenner. He goes off for 49 in a Creighton win against, wait for it, University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley. I got it, right? Congratulations. 49 on 20 of 22 shooting for the 7'1" fifth-year senior who was hitting them from everywhere. He even had a couple of threes in the game. And people are already saying, hey, Naismith Player of the Year considerations. Let's go.
UTRVG scored 86 points against the number 15 team in the country. And I'm guessing before about 45 seconds ago, you didn't know that was a real school.
Nope.
Didn't know it was
D1.
For Creighton. Great. Listen, Ryan Kalkbrenner, he's been great for the last couple of years at Creighton. Thing is, if they're going to give up 86 to nobody state, they got bigger problems.
The thoughts of Sam Yarnell on UTRGV do not necessarily represent the views of SportsWrap with Jason Page.
Football school.
I didn't even know that. NFL Week 10 Contender Pretender is next. We cruise into segment 3 on this Thursday edition of SportsWrap. Week 10 in the NFL kicks off on Thursday night. Bengals and Ravens. Got a lot to say about that coming up in odds and ends. What are you doing?
I'm cruising.
God. Okay, Sam Yarnell, Week 10 in the NFL, and it's Thursday, and that can only mean one thing, ladies and gentlemen. Time for Contender. Pretender. Contender Pretender, Sam Yarnell. Today's Contender Pretender. Contenders for the top overall pick in the 2024 or 2025 NFL Draft. What do you got for me?
All right, Jason, my first contender to pick number 1 overall in April is the New Orleans Saints. We're talking about a team that's lost 7 straight after starting the season 2-0, obviously tied for the worst record in the league right now. And at the very bottom of the National Football League's cap situation, the New Orleans Saints are really, really bad. So bad that former players are going after their current players. They're a contender to pick number 1 overall this spring. Next, the Las Vegas Raiders, another team in disarray. Listen, they've had quarterback problems. They've thought about trading guys. They have traded guys. The Raiders are a mess. They could just lose out in a tough division that has overperformed outside of Las Vegas. Listen, the Raiders could pick number 1 overall in this draft. And finally, a team we talked about earlier in the show, Jason Page, the Jacksonville Jaguars are real contenders for the first overall pick in the draft. I wonder where they'd go. They've already got 2 first-round quarterbacks on their roster, and they might be turning to one of them this week. The Jacksonville Jaguars could pick first overall in the draft. So Saints, Raiders, Jaguars, those are my 3.
Okay. Pretenders for the Super Bowl, Sam Yarnell.
All right. First of all, you're not going to like this. The Pittsburgh Steelers are Super Bowl pretenders. Listen, they could make a playoff run. I'm not saying they couldn't. The thing is, they cannot get... They probably can't get past the best team in the NFC, but I don't think they could get past the best team in the AFC either. This is a really good team. It's not a great team. They don't have the offensive prowess to win a Super Bowl, while that defense is very, very, very very good.
It's elite.
The Philadelphia Eagles.
It's elite. It's an elite.
Sure.
It's an elite defense.
It is an elite defense. Sure. 100%. I'm in your boat on that. Eagles, also Super Bowl pretenders. Why? I just don't think it's the year for Jalen Hurts. He has to have a very, very specific year to get them to the Super Bowl, and he's not having it so far this year. They don't have... Although Saquon Barkley's having a breakout season to the dismay of Giants fans like Jason, they don't have the multitude of weapons around him. The Eagles, also their coach is an nincompoop. The Eagles are Super Bowl pretenders. And the Minnesota Vikings, listen, I talked earlier in the week or maybe last week about how now's the time to get in on fading the Vikings left and right. I think that their best days are behind them this season, and I don't think that with Sam Darnold you're making a deep playoff run. So the Minnesota Vikings, to me, are Super Bowl pretenders. See, Steelers, Eagles, Vikings, the entire state of Pennsylvania, and the Minnesota Vikings. Those are my pretenders.
All right, Sam Yarnell. I've got some contenders and pretenders of my own. Contender, pretender. Again, we're talking about contender this week for the top overall pick. That's the theme for this year's NFL draft. Look, you got to go with the Patriots, and because I think they want it. I think they, you have to want the top pick. There's something to be said for a team that's willing to go into the tank to go and get that top overall pick. And to me, the Patriots want it. And they might want it more than anybody with the exception of one team, who is our number 2 team, and that would be the Carolina Panthers, who still need lots of help. Remember, this is a franchise that didn't have the pick last year that they should have had. So this year, they're hungry to get it again, and they've got the pieces in place to get it. I know it sounds weird to say that, but everything that you need to have happen, it's hard to get the number 1 pick. It might be easier to win 9 games than it is to win 2 games. It's hard to be that bad. And the Carolina Panthers are that bad. I don't see anything that keeps the Patriots or Panthers from being 1-2 in the NFL draft. I'd be thoroughly surprised. My outlier, though, contender for top overall pick, is the New York Giants. And the caveat to it is this. If they decide at some point that the Daniel Jones era is over, then you could see the Giants go into the tank to try and get the highest pick possible. Maybe that isn't the top overall pick, but I could see the Giants right now with 2 wins saying, yeah, you know what? We're done. We know that this era of Giants football, the Daniel Jones era of Giants football, is over. I could see the Giants making the decision to do everything they can to be sucktastic and get that top overall pick, Sam Yarnell. So those are my 3 for contender for the top overall pick. You got a thought?
So yes, the only thing about the number 1 overall pick this year to me, and in doing the research for this, is there definitely is going to be a lot of tiebreakers at play, and I think obviously the first one is strength of schedule. The Giants, just because they're in a really good division, have a very good strength of schedule, so they would lose that tiebreaker to your New Orleans, to your New England, to your Carolina. That's my only concern with New York.
See, my argument to that is I think New Orleans will win a couple of games just on – I know you don't think he's that good. I think they'll just win a couple of games with Derek Carr alone. That he'll throw up a huge number 1 or 2 times. So they're not going to finish with 2 or 3 wins. I think they're going to still finish with 4 or 5 wins. You're going to get that little bounce from the coaching change and guys playing above their heads for a couple of games.
That's a good point, coaching change.
Yeah, so that's one of the things I look at with the Saints. All right, pretenders for the Super Bowl, Sam Yarnell. I keep saying it. And I'm not trying to take a dump on them. And I know you can get them right now at 22-1 on FanDuel, but the Houston Texans are not Super Bowl contenders. Good, not great, not elite, not Super Bowl. I will put the Houston Texans as my top pick right now, as far as the Super Bowl is concerned. They'll certainly win that division, though. The Atlanta Falcons. Why am I getting the head shake?
No. I'll tell you after.
Okay, all right.
It's
all right,
not
real quick.
Pretenders.
Falcons. All right, pretenders. Super Bowl. Falcons. Look, good. I think they're going to win that division. I still think there's the potential for them to get even better between now and the end of the year. But right now, I can't consider the Falcons as a Super Bowl contender. There's only one team, frankly, out of the NFC I consider a Super Bowl contender, and they play in Detroit. Anybody coming out of the NFC West? Why? Because we love to make fun of the NFC West. It's just fun.
We do.
I know people are going to say maybe the Niners if they get healthy. I also could grow 6 inches and, be playing in the NBA in a couple days. Not going to happen. Yeah, real quick.
Bonus first overall pick contender, Browns.
Welcome back to this Thursday edition of the show. No stone goes unturned. Let's talk some hockey. Our new Canadian audience watching us on Fubo, watching us on Game Plus. Love you guys. Just joined in this week. Say hello to our good friend Dennis Bernstein. thefourthperiod.com, SiriusXM, NHL radio as well, hanging out with us on the show. All right, Dennis, let's talk some hockey. The chances that Alex Ovechkin passes Wayne Gretzky, I mean, off to a great start.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, people doubted it. I think I was one of the few at the beginning of the season saying, I think he can break it. Right now, he's on a 44-goal pace. He needed 42 at the start of the season. So stop doubting Alex Ovechkin. He may not break it this season, but the team around him is certainly better. Like, that's not a minus 37 goal differential team that made the playoffs last year. So I wouldn't be shocked, to be honest with you. He's not at a ridiculous pace. If he was at an Austin Matthews pace of last season at 70 goals, I say, no, that's not sustainable. He needs 42. He's a 40-goal scorer on a good team. So let's see. So I think it's going to be exciting, Chase, and I wouldn't be shocked if before we get to game 82, Alex does have the record for goals.
And you mentioned it, but how surprising has their start been to you?
It's been amazing. Look, I'll tell you one thing. They got a coach in Washington. Spencer Carberry last year dragged that team into the playoffs with a minus 37 goal differential. They started off well. Now they were aggressive in the offseason. They went out and traded for a risky guy in Dubois, but he seemed to fit in. They signed Matt Roy in free agency. They traded for Jacob Chikrin. This is a very different team and a better team, to be honest with you. They're younger guys like Proteus and McMichael have coming through. So is it sustainable? I think if they play defense this way, yeah, it's sustainable. Do I think they're a top 3 team in the division? I don't. But if they get into the playoffs, this team will be more dangerous than the one that got knocked out really easily last season.
How surprising! We talked yesterday with our friend Kurt Heelan of Pro Basketball Talk about the slow start for some of the teams that you were expecting good things out of. We were talking about the Bucks and the 76ers. The Bruins are one of those teams, kind of a sluggish start here. I think they have one more win than the Sabres early on. Yeah,
and the one game in Carolina was probably the worst game they've played maybe in 5 years. They lost 8-2, and there's a lot of doubt. Now, what did they do? They got back-to-back shutouts, the next 2 games, one against Seattle, and that's how they play Bruins hockey. So, look, I think this team is going to regress. I don't think they're a championship team, not necessarily because of the defense that didn't show up for a couple of games, but it's because of the offense. I just don't think there's enough there. They signed Elias Lindholm to a big deal, over $8 million a year. He's on a championship team, Jason. He's a number 2 center, not a number 1 center. So, and when they don't play defense, you see some games and so it's totally out of character. I don't think they even could be a top 3 team in the Atlantic. I think they're a wildcard team at this point in time until they show better for their coach, Jim Montgomery, who might be on the hot seat if, they continue to be a 500 team as they've opened the season with.
Stay in the Atlantic with the Panthers, obviously the Stanley Cup champs. Not much of a hangover here.
No hangover, Jason. Negative hangover. They look like the team that won the Stanley Cup. And they had defections. Brandon Montour left through free agency. So did Oliver Ekman-Larsson. Tarasenko left. This team, you would think of a hangover. And Jason, it's not even just last year. They went to the Cup final 2 seasons ago. They played a
lot of games. Yeah.
If there's any excuse for a team not to come hot out of the box, it's the Florida Panthers. But that's not in their DNA. And I don't think Paul Maurice, the coach, will let them do that. So it's a great story. I'm shocked. I would take my foot off the gas pedal if I was Paul Maurice, probably a little bit, and say, hey, guys, slow down. It's only game 14. We got to get through this again. But they certainly look like a team that could repeat as Stanley Cup champions.
One more in the East, only because I have to get a Rangers-related question in. Thoughts on how the Rangers have played early on. 8-2, 17 points.
I think they're fine. I'm being transparent. I picked them to win the Stanley Cup on fourthperiod.com.
Come on. Let's go.
They've got all the components. They got to get Shesterkin in his contract and he'll get paid, but he's worth $12 million to that team, because if you watch this team play, they're not a puck possession team. He's got to make a lot of saves on a lot of nights. But the question will come down, Jason, to the Rangers. What are the big guys going to do in the playoffs? We're already forecast the conversations we'll have in April and May. Can Zibanejad do it? Can Panarin do it? Can Kreider come through? Can Adam Fox come through? Can their core guys deliver in the playoffs? That's going to be the question. I like them to win the division. On them and the Devils, I think, are the 2 best in the Metro, but it's all about the postseason for the Rangers.
Winnipeg, an insane pace in the early going. 12-1. Connor Hellebuyck's playing fantastic in net. I mean, what more is there to say? I'm sure you can say a lot more, though.
Well, it's not sustainable, right? They're not going to get 160 standing points, right? They're not going to go lose one of those. But, Jason, here's the thing. At the end of last season, all people remember is they won game 1 against Colorado and they got wiped out. Like Hellebuck wasn't great. But Jason, people forget coming into the playoffs, they won 8 straight regular season games to close the season last season. So I know it's over 2 seasons, but Jason, they're 20-1 over the last 21 regular season games. Like people don't even realize, like, oh, it's great. No, they won 8 last year too. They've gone 20-1 in the last 21 regular season games. It's a dangerous team. Like, do I think they're better than Dallas or Edmonton, pound for pound? I think on paper, and what killed them last season in the playoffs was the defense went away, and Hellebuck couldn't make a save. If they're going to produce offense like this and get their defensive play, because there was a stretch last year, Jason, over 30 games, 3 goals or less. So they have all the components. It's just a market that they play in. People aren't really taking them seriously, but clear cut, maybe other than Florida, this is the best team in the league right now, and it's not even close.
I got 30 seconds. Las Vegas, my new adopted hometown.
Yes.
I don't know if people thought that this was what we would see, at least in the early going. People thought there would be some regression with this franchise, but there they are at 9-3.
Yeah, and they actually won a road game. I'm sorry, they hadn't won. They were a great home game, and they're bad on the road. Like, here's the thing: I think this team has a chip on their shoulders. They got knocked out in the first round. Granted, it was 7 games against Dallas, but they got a chip because people aren't really saying. When you talk about Stanley Cup winners, you're talking about Edmonton, Florida, New York. Not really Vegas. They're kind of like the second tier, and they're not happy about that.
Dennis Bernstein, thefourthperiod.com, SiriusXM NHL Radio. Thank you, my friend.
Always a pleasure, Jay.
All right, coming up in 10 minutes, odds and ends, including a payday gone horribly wrong in college basketball, and a Thursday night NFL game to start Week 10. We'll have some betting news you can use. Sam Yarnell, something to consider. The disaster that is the Mike Tyson, Jake Paul fight. I'm not going to lie. I'm still excited to watch it, and I'll watch it apparently on Netflix because I'm not going to be there in person in Dallas since twice I have asked for a credential and twice I have been denied. I guess they don't need media coverage on 220 affiliates on television and podcast and all that stuff. Hey, okay. That's on you. That's a you problem. So Mike Tyson, Jake Paul, they got a bit of a problem. And here it is on your screen. Do you see all the blue on this ticket map for AT&T Stadium where the Dallas Cowboys play? All that blue means tickets not sold. Tickets available. Or as Marv Albert would say, plenty of good seats available. Fans disguised as empty seats. Take your choice. And you literally can take your choice when it comes to tickets because there is no shortage of them for Mike Tyson and Jake Paul. And to me, this is one of those instances, Sam, where the combination of putting it on Netflix, where somebody could buy it for, how much is Netflix? Because I don't know. My husband pays
$7.99 a month, $11.99 a month.
So you can buy Netflix for $11.99 and watch the fight from the comfort of your home, have the best seat in the house, watch the beads of sweat pouring off 58-year-old Mike Tyson's body and face. Or you could go watch the fight in person for $400, $500, $300, sit at the top of the stadium for $52. It might be one of those instances where this thing does really well on Netflix, Sam, but is a terrible box office flop.
I didn't think about that. By the way, standard standard Netflix without commercials. Mm-hmm. The Netflix you and I grew up on. Yeah. $15.49 a month. My goodness. I remember when it was like $2 and you just sent the movies back in the mail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sent the DVD back.
People these days don't even know what DVDs are. Anyway, I digress.
You don't know what VHS is, so I don't want to hear it.
That is patently false. My mother used to yell at me all the time when I was growing up because I didn't rewind my tapes of the Wiggles. Anyway. What I was looking at when you mentioned that tickets were cheap, and by the way, whatever ticket market you're looking on, they're cheap everywhere. If you go on the SeatGeek app, everything's green because it's all way cheaper than they expected it to be. And that got me thinking, Jason Page, if they're not gonna give you a credential, what if we just took the company card and got ourselves some VIP package tickets for $5,000 each? Look at all that green. Look at all those great deals. And then $5,000 each. We'll be sitting ringside. The players will sweat on us. And it's only $5,000. I say we do it. Who says no?
My bank account. My bank account says no. Yeah, that would probably be the best thing I could think of. There will be no show. There'll be no show because I'll be divorced. Be as simple as that. It was interesting. I was reading something from Chael Sonnen, who was because there's a lot of conversation about what do we get. You know what you're going to get from Jake Paul, right? An above average boxer who's sort of, he is. He's an look, the guy,
an above average amateur boxer.
Okay, fine. But the guy is,
Well, I'm just basing that on every time he's fought a professional martial artist or fighter, he's lost.
Okay, fair enough.
A professional combat athlete, that's what they like to be called. I'm sorry.
Okay. Look, to start
For
from
an
where
amateur,
he was, right. Think what you want of him personally, and there's plenty we can get into and say on that. I get it. But the bigger curiosity factor to this whole fight is, what will Mike Tyson look like at 58 years old? There have been some people that have suggested, hey, if you really want to spruce this thing up, have him fight bare knuckles. Bare knuckle fighting, baby. There have been some suggestions of that. Like, people are trying to figure out a way, what do we have to do to get fans in the seats? First one to bite an ear off? Like, I don't know. Like, I mean, where are we going to go? I mean, look, this is as big a spectacle, as outrageous a spectacle, man fights bear. I mean, short of that, this is that kind of spectacle. You're going to do what you have to do. Figure out a way to spruce up the rules to make this thing more interesting. Do you think, let me ask you this real quick. Do you think the fight goes the distance?
No.
Because that seems to be the big bet.
The problem is here. This is the problem. And I just realized this because this is fake sports and no one actually cares about it. And I don't know why we're wasting time on it. But I just realized this. And here's the problem with all of this. This fight is happening on a Friday at 4:30 in the afternoon. What are we doing? This is a joke. It's not even in prime time. People are going to be at work.
No, I think the Paul Tyson fight will. I think the card probably starts at 4:30. I think you'll be all right because
it's on a Friday night. Why not?
I know. I'm just saying it's 11 p.m. Eastern.
It's
11 p.m. Eastern on FanDuel. So I'm just saying in terms of what they're saying. Tyson plus 215, Jake Paul minus 280. We're back with odds and ends next. SportsWrap continues, but not for long. Just about time to put the wraps on this baby for a Thursday. Couple of reminders for you. First, we got the Substack. SportsWrap with Jason Page Substack. Catch up on everything we talked about in the show. We've got clips. We've got extended interviews, bonus content, betting insider picks, which hopefully Sam will have some for us for tonight's game. All sorts of goodies for SportsWrap listeners and watchers of the show. You can get the podcast there as well, including the SportsWrap with Jason Page podcast available on Spotify, YouTube. We now have it there, although they're not showing the video of it on YouTube, so I might have to recalibrate some things to make that work, because watching the show is half the fun, and seeing Sam's weird facial expressions to just about everything I say during the show kind of makes it worthwhile. So all of those different things, reasons to check out the SportsWrap Substack, SportsWrap with Jason Page podcast. Go and get those today, and the Substack is just only going to continue to grow. And it's free. Free. Free is for me. All right, without any further delay, Sam Yarnell, time for some odds and ends. Odds and ends. The first thing we want to do in odds and ends today is congratulate Columbia and laugh at Villanova. Villanova at home on Wednesday night, a payday game for the Ivy League school of Columbia. And Columbia beats Villanova on Wednesday night. They were 9-1 to win that game, Sam Yarnell. And Villanova just continues to... Jay Wright enjoying life right now. Villanova, not so much.
Jay Wright from Hofstra University. That's right, Jason Page. Listen, subscribers to the Substack knew the spot that Columbia was in because we were on Loyola when Columbia lost to them outright as a 2.5-point road favorite on Tuesday night, I believe, or maybe it was Monday night.
Yeah,
regardless, great spot for Columbia. You knew they had some fire in their belly. And listen, they came out and they beat a perennial powerhouse in Villanova. So early struggles for Jay Wright, but for Jay Wright's team, I should
Jay Wright's
say.
old team.
That's what I meant.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, you can't worry about these kinds of things. This happens to everyone. Listen, Arkansas under Calipari is bound to lose some stupid game in the next 2 weeks that will not matter when they go on a Final Four run in 3.5 months. As much as we can pretend it does, except for probably 16 teams, November basketball doesn't really matter a ton outside of what growth you see.
By the way, UConn, trying to win a third straight national championship, beat Sacred Heart last night, 92-56.
I was going to say, they didn't just beat them, they beat them.
Yeah, they did. They did. 20 points for Caravan in that game. So UConn, and 15 off the bench for Terrace Reed Jr. So UConn, a winner, first game of the season. Go Huskies. We will keep an eye on them as we go through the season. What are we keeping an eye on for Thursday night? Well, it's Thursday night NFL football, of course, the start of Week 10 around the league. Sam Yarnell, we want some betting advice on the Bengals. And this is going to sound crazy that I'm going to say this, but I was thinking about it before the show today. And you're going to scoff, and you're going to make one of those patented Sam Yarnell faces when I say this. So let's all zoom in on Sam here. Just I will take myself off the screen. We'll just put the camera directly on Sam when I say this. Dare we say the Bengals still control their own fate for the division title going into Week 10 after a horrendous start to the season? There it is, ladies and gentlemen. That is 100% factual. There is nothing about that statement that isn't factual.
Sure. Yeah, okay. I mean, they control their own destiny strictly because they're playing against the teams who really control their destiny. So yeah, you're not wrong. You're not right.
And
but
what's
you're
the
not
opposite?
wrong.
No, what's the opposite of wrong? The opposite of wrong is right.
You're in the gray area right in the middle. You're in that gray area. There is a small gray area right there in the middle, and you're walking that line right now.
I guess you don't give the Bengals much of a chance tonight. Plus 5.5 to the Bengals, plus 220 on the money line. The total is 52.5. What do you think?
I don't know if they win the game. I wouldn't say I don't give them any sort of chance against the number. Listen, the over is the fun play here. Mm-hmm. Obviously, if you want to have some fun, the Cincinnati Bengals defense can't stop anybody. And
neither can the Ravens.
The Ravens offense is practically unstoppable. So it's like unstoppable force against completely movable object. It's exactly what you want to see for the over. Then again, it's a Thursday night game, so it's a dead under. I mean, you have no idea where to go with this one. My best bet in this game might be Bengals to miss the playoffs. I'm not joking. That might be my best bet in the game. Listen, fantasy-wise, if you go out and pick up Andre Yoshivas, if you're short of wide receiver, if you have T. Higgins on your team starting, I think that's probably a good call. T. Higgins doubtful for this game. Charlie Jones, who's like their fourth wide receiver, also doubtful. It's supposed to be a big Yoshivas game. Let's see if we can get it in.
All right. Give Al Michaels something fun. Please, just give me the over. I'm going over 52.5. It's a sentimental pick. If you force me to pick a team, I'll take the Bengals plus the 5.5.
Yeah, I think I'm with you.
By the way, Bengals minus 106 to miss the playoffs. Minus 114 to get in. Thanks to Dennis Bernstein. Thanks to you, Sam Yarnell. Friday Sports Wrap. We'll see you tomorrow. That was fun. That was a fun show.
I was thinking about that earlier today. I was thinking about the game